Hey guys, what's up? CaptainTurbo here, and welcome to episode 6 of the Captain's Log. And I haven't done one of these in a very long time. Just to clarify something, this was not meant to be a Captain's Log episode for today. As you know, for the 2-year anniversary week, I usually have a episode for every day of the week, or at least something for every day of the week anyway. Now, I had planned for a top 10 list. Not gonna lie, I was gonna do the top 10 video games of my childhood. Now, I recorded the footage, I had the commentary recorded as well. When it got to editing though, my software just crapped itself and I could not get the thing edited together correctly. It just would not happen. The editing software did not want to do it. I tried it with both Windows Live Movie Maker and my other bigger editing software, which I can't remember the name of. And I have to drop the idea because it's currently the 2nd of November and I am not going to have enough time to get it done, I don't think now. Anyway, it kind of made me realize, alright, I need something for one of the days of the week where it needs to fill in the top 10 slot instead. So I decided on doing another Captain's Log, and the subject for this one today is the Sonic the Hedgehog 25th anniversary. That's not actually this week or anything like that, because obviously it's just been announced now that the 25th anniversary is coming up, I think. I'm not actually sure when the 25th anniversary is. I think it's next June, something like that. But I'm not here to talk about the actual anniversary. I'm here to talk about what I'd like to see personally for the next Sonic game. Or at least the next mainstream Sonic game, anyway. Because, 25th anniversary, it's a big deal. For any video game franchise, actually. And Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite franchise. And, I really want to see a new game. So, first of all, the anniversaries for the Blue Blur haven't been consistent. 10th anniversary, we had Sonic Adventure 2, which, while I'm not a huge fan of, many people are. A lot of people say it's the game that got them into Sonic, because it was the first one released, I should say re-released on the GameCube. So it was a lot of people's first game. But it was a good game anyway. 15th anniversary was a piece of shit. You had 06, you had Sonic Genesis for this Game Boy Advance, which was one of the worst ports of any game ever. The only actual decent game to come out of it was Sonic Riders, and I don't like that. I don't like those games. The 20th anniversary though was a lot better with Sonic Generations. Although if we're going with that kind of pattern, then that means the 25th anniversary is going to suck. Hopefully that won't happen though. And there's no actual pattern, and I'm just trying to see things where there's nothing to see. But recently the Sonic games have not been doing very well. Sonic Lost World came out a couple of years ago for the Wii U. I think it's actually today that it comes out on Steam. Actually, let me just check that while I'm still talking. Sonic Lost World did not do particularly well. A lot of people liked some aspects of the game, but they hated other things. I haven't played the game, so I couldn't really give you a fair opinion other than the story and the characters. The story was okay, I guess. I've seen a lot better. The villains, however, were extremely one-note. Even just watching Let's Plays of it, you could tell that the Zeddy were fucking boring. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. They actually put some effort into the bad guys. So just use someone that's already an established bad guy. There's nothing wrong with just keeping it Sonic Robotnik, in my opinion, or Eggman, whatever you want to call him. The gameplay looks kind of weird as well, but as I said, I haven't actually touched the game myself, so I couldn't really give you a honest opinion. But Lost World was at best received. It was best received mildly warm, I guess. It wasn't exactly beloved or anything like that. But it did fairly well money wise. But again, a lot of people really didn't like it. And yeah, I've just checked, guys. It is technically today, but it's not going to be for another 9 hours that the game gets unlocked. Oh well. Yeah, and there's no fucking way I'm paying £20 for the game. No way. Then came Sonic Boom, Rise of the Lyric, and Shattered Crystals for the 3DS. Again, never played them. Found the game very, very boring to watch. The game suffered multiple issues, and it's hated about as much as '06 was, and it's meant to be a spin-off series, and from what I understand, the cartoons are great. I've not watched it myself yet, but the cartoons are supposed to be pretty good. The comic didn't last very long, although I can't say I really find that surprising. Yeah, Sonic has kind of been on a weird ride recently where his games haven't been very well received. Uh, and this is what worries me because this is the exact same pattern they had going up to '06. Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog were not exactly well received, and then they ended up releasing '06, which was the epitome of bad. I mean, personally, I think the worst Sonic game ever is Secret Rings. But I'm not gonna say '06 was a great game or anything because it wasn't. It was just I was kind of meh to it, to be honest. But yeah, I'm really worried about this actually. From what there's been very little announced about the next game actually, other than the fact that I think someone from Sega of Europe said they're gonna try to go back to what made Sonic great on the 2D, and they said something about transitioning Sonic from 2D to 3D hasn't been easy, and they've never really been able to do it properly. I'll get to that in a minute, but the whole we're going to take Sonic back to its roots is something that they've been saying since '06. And that was how that was meant to go back to its roots. I don't know, because Sonic '06 was meant to be a reboot of the entire franchise. Fine, but there's very little in that was similar to the original Sonic games. The idea that they've transitioned badly from 2D to 3D, in my opinion, isn't exactly truthful. I honestly think the two adventure games were fucking great games. I mean, they're buggy, they have issues, glitches and stuff. They're still extremely fun, though. Sonic Adventure 1 more so than 2 for me, but, the games handled well. There was enough speed on Sonic that it didn't really matter. The levels were fun and interesting. The stories, well, Sonic Adventure 2 was a little bit too convoluted for me. I thought Adventure 1 was decent enough. And here's the thing. Later on, when they did Sonic Unleashed, fair enough, very few people liked the Werehog apart from me. But the day stages were great, and they introduced the boost mechanic and all that. And I have a few issues with that, but they increased on that with Sonic Colors and then Generations, and then they kind of just dropped it. And this seems to be Sega's problem. Every time they have something good going for them with the Sonic franchise, the two adventure games were good, and then they had to start coding for the PS2 and all that. Something they couldn't do, so they had to bring out a brand new engine, and it didn't work as well as the Adventure engine did. So yeah, that one you can understand because they're having to create something completely from scratch. But you had the boost mechanic, which was working perfectly well, and then you went to Lost World that didn't really have that same. The only time I think you could boost in that game is if you had Supersonic. But yeah, this is Sega's problem. They never stick to one idea and just build off it. They like this idea of constantly changing how Sonic handles in games and how he plays and the type of game you're going to get. I can understand why they want to do that. One of the issues people have with the Mario franchise is the fact that it's very stale and very little actually changes. But Sega decided a lot of the time to go do a complete 180. I mean, you went from Shadow the Hedgehog, fast gameplay, gunplay, to Sonic 06. slow as ass gameplay, boring open levels, weird story. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of something to say with that in a nice way, but yes, Sega don't seem to be able to want to come up with a decent plan or an idea like the boost mechanic, and instead of changing it to something else after they've gotten bored with it, they don't want to use the boost mechanic they've had. I mean, you don't have to keep using the boost mechanic, but build off it. Don't completely change it to something else for a new series of Sonic games, because it's not going to work and people aren't going to like it, especially if they like the thing you're doing. People like the boost mechanic. As I said, I think it probably overstayed its welcome. Well, not overstayed its welcome. I think 3 games was enough. But you could have built off what you learnt with that, and you really kind of didn't. I don't know what I'm trying to say with that, but essentially, Sega needs to stop fucking around. That's all I can say with that. But yeah, I'm not really sure what I want. Actually, that's a lie. I do know what I want. I want no 2D levels. This is something that has pissed me off for a long time now. I'm just trying to think when it first started. Alright, it started in Colors. Ever since Colors came around, Sega have had this weird obsession with making 3D Sonic games 2D in certain levels. Now, Colors was a huge what's the word I'm looking for here? Was extremely guilty of this. 90% of Colors' gameplay was 2D. I don't like that. I'm sorry. If I'm gonna play 2D Sonic game, I'll go back and play one of the retro games. Colors was 90% 2D. Generations was 50% 2D. In fact, probably more than that actually. I'm not gonna count parts where the game would occasionally go to 2D sections, because that's something that's been happening since Unleashed. Lost World had quite a lot of 2D as well. I'd say it was about 50-50 as well, maybe. And I'm honestly getting sick of 3D. You know, if you want to do a 2D Sonic game, fine. Do it like Episode 4. Naturally, don't do it like Episode 4. Episode 4 was fucking boring. But do it like that in terms of making it a downloadable game. If you want to do a 2D Sonic game, do a full 3D Sonic game, for fuck's sake. It's not a huge thing to do a full 3D game. I mean, I know Boom, for lack of a better word completely boomed. And it was a full 3D game for the most part, but I don't know. I just don't want to see a game that's going to shove a shitload of 2D levels into, because it never feels the same as the original games did back in the day. It just feels extremely wonky, and it makes you... it makes me anyway compare it to the older games, and that's never a good thing. You know, so if you're going to release another Sonic game on main platforms, in stores and stuff, make it full 3D. You know, if you want to transition to 2D during gameplay to make it look nice, fine. You can do that every so often, but just don't create full-fledged 2D levels, please. And I dropped my keyboard. Other than that, I don't really care what we get as long as it plays well. You know, I'd like to see an interesting story, I guess. I mean, you can have all the jokes you want, but I'm going to be honest here, I'm not a fan of the humor from the Sonic franchise. It's just never been my type of humor, and quite honestly, I don't know what I'd want. I'd want something between Adventure 1 and Colors in terms of story. I want something that's got a decent story, a decent in-depth story, but still has some humor to it. You know, not humor, sorry, still has some lightheartedness to it. I'd like to see that from story. Gameplay, as I said, I just want something that works correctly and plays well, and it's fun. You know, use as many of the characters you want. You know, just don't do an 06 where all the characters play like ass apart from 1 or 2. Also, try not to make any new characters for this game. You know, there's an overabundance of Sonic characters as it is, even just from the main series alone. You know, you've got plenty to work with from the already existing roster. You don't need to create anyone else. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what the game's going to be. I mean, a lot of people have been clamoring for Generations 2. Personally, I'm not really interested in that because that was a very safe route they took there. Basically, just recreating levels from Sonic games, the more popular levels from those Sonic games. I'd like to see them come up with something original in terms of level designs and all that. Of course, we're probably going to get the normal ice trope and casino trope and all that, but I would like to see them at least attempt something new. Music is always Sonic games generally have decent enough music. Not always great, but at least have decent music, so I'm not worried about that too much. The only other thing I'm worried about is the fact that nothing's actually been announced. There's been some mobile Sonic games announced, like Sonic Runners 2 and all that, but I'm not a mobile gamer. I have no interest in mobile phones. I answer a call once or twice a week, if that, and that's about it. If those games came out on Steam or something, I'd probably download them, try them out, but I've absolutely no interest in mobile gaming at all. And to be honest, I'm hoping those games aren't the only thing that's going to be announced for the 25th anniversary. I'll be very surprised if they turn out to be the only thing they do announce. The only other game that actually has been announced is Sonic Boom Fire and Ice. Again, I'm guessing this was in development when back before even Shattered Crystals and Rise of Light was released, because quite honestly put, a lot of people were surprised when they announced this game, because they honestly thought they were just going to let the game series of Sonic Boom at least die, because quite honestly, neither game sold well and neither game was received very well. Rise of Light was a buggy mess, and Shattered Crystals was apparently very boring and long. So, it's been 25 years. I still remain a huge Sonic fan. I have the games, I have the comics, I have the TV shows. I am interested to see what Sega and Sonic Team are going to do with Sonic for the 25th anniversary. I have no clue what they'll do, but I am very interested in finding out. A lot of people think Sonic needs to go away. I say fuck no to that. Quite honestly put, Sonic just needs to find an actual gameplay style that fits him well in 3D. If not, just go back to 2D. I mean, Freedom Planet was originally meant to be a Sonic fan hack, or Sonic fan game, sorry, and it's a fucking great game. It's a great 2D sprite game. It absolutely pisses over anything Sega's done in years, 2D wise. Anyway, fucking Sonic 4 episodes 1 and 2 were very boring. It can be done. You can create decent Sonic games in 2D still if you get the right people. Sonic Team just don't seem to be the right people anymore. At least for 2D anyway. Or I think, actually, was it Dimps that did Sonic 4 episode 1 and 2? I can't remember. Either way, it doesn't matter. All I'm trying to say is that we're currently on a bit of a downslope with the Sonic games at the moment, and hopefully the 25th anniversary will rectify that and will be a good game. I'm hoping it will be anyway. As I said, we have Fire and Ice coming out. I don't own a Wii U or a 3DS, so I'm not going to bother getting that. There's no point, because I don't own the console. Lost World is actually out later today in about 8.5 hours, I think, something like that. I will eventually pick up Lost World for this PC, because I do want to play the game. As I said, apart from the mobile games, nothing else for Sonic has been announced, other than the fact that what I mentioned earlier is the fact that Sega of Europe let slip through that they wanted to make a game closer to the classics. Again, I don't know if that means they're going to go 2D or they're going to design levels in 3D that look like the 2D games. I don't know. Could you imagine Labyrinth Zone in fucking 3D? That would be fucking horrifying. I'm not really sure exactly what I'd want to be announced. I don't want another 2D game. I'm going to be honest, I don't want another 2D Sonic game yet. You know, Freedom Planet has more than happily filled that void of 2D Sonic. You know, I want to see Sonic Team come out with a full 3D game. A full 3D game that plays well. That's the only thing I know I want right now. And you know what? I think I'm going to end this off here, because I've been rambling for, what is it now? Over 20 minutes, and I don't actually have very little actual proof or anything that a game is even going to come out this year, let alone being able to talk about it for 20 minutes. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward and both apprehensive about what this could be. Hey guys, I'm going to leave this off here. Hope you enjoyed my little rant for the last 20 minutes. Again, I apologize. Did have something else planned for this, but I had to do this at the last minute kind of thing. I'll come back anytime soon with another Captain's Log. Hopefully I will at some point. But until then, guys, hope you enjoy this, and have a good night.